we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
So this week I lost my dream job at the U.S. State Department. I worked in the War Crimes Office, but Trump and Rubio decided to eliminate that office, not to mention the entire undersecretariat that deals with human rights and democracy and labor. So I'm out of a job, and the only silver lining there is that I get my voice back because I'm no longer working for this administration, which is hell-bent on bringing us into fascism. So brand new to TikTok, just wanted to introduce myself and say hi. I have a PhD from Oxford University where I focused on how countries recover from genocide and how victims get justice. That's what I was trying to do as a senior policy advisor in the Office of Global Criminal Justice, which no longer exists at the US State Department. So I'm here and I'm looking for ways to continue the good fight.
So what's left? Well, quite a few things. And many opportunities, but obviously they'll all go down the tube if Iran gets nuclear weapons. The reason Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons is because successive governments under my prime ministership have led successive actions, which I won't discuss here with the same, forgive me, with the same detail over the years, and that set them back about 10 years from where they thought they'd be. 10 years ago, they already thought they'd have a nuclear arsenal. They don't. But we delayed them, but we didn't stop them. So they moved very far on enrichment. They're trying to move on weaponry. And the question is now what to do. Happily, we have a president in Washington who's committed, as he says, and as he said to me many times, including just recently, we can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. And I said, I absolutely believe that, devoted a good chunk of my life to prevent that. But there are two ways to do it. One is to get a deal that would prevent them from doing that by dismantling their nuclear infrastructure. You have to dismantle their nuclear infrastructure. And that means not that they will not enrich uranium, but that they will not have the capacity to enrich uranium, which means you destroy the centrifuges, you remove, of course, the nuclear material that is already enriched, and there are a few other things that you have to do, but that's the crux of it. The real deal that works is a deal which removes Iran's capacity to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons. By the way, the only reasons you enrich uranium is to have nuclear weapons. There are dozens and dozens of countries who have civilian nuclear programs, and they don't enrich uranium. So Iran is constantly thinking, well, we have to find a reason why we're putting these things in bunkers under mountains, maybe for radioisotopes, right, for medicine, or for nuclear submarines. Give me a break. They enrich uranium for one reason and one reason only, and that's to make nuclear weapons, which they intend to use to destroy my country and threaten America. Once they have the weapons of delivery, ballistic missiles, ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, they will threaten every city in the United States. That is a palpable danger to Israel and to the free world, and it must be prevented. The way to prevent it is to dismantle all the infrastructure of Iran's nuclear program. That is the deal we could live with. Anything short of that could bring you the opposite result. Because Iran will say, all right, I won't enrich. Wait, run out the clock. Wait for another president. Do it again. That's unacceptable. Equally, I think we should bring in the ballistic missiles, the prevention of the development of ballistic missiles into the deal. I think these are the two requirements. I said to President Trump that I hope that this is what the negotiators will do. We're in close contact with the United States. But I said one way or the other, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. So we have a seven-front war, which is really a one-front war with Iran and its proxies. We appreciate the fact that the United States is taking action against the Houthis, very important. We appreciate the help that we're getting from the United States. Arms are flowing in. It's important. We share the same goals, but we have to make sure that Iran does not get nuclear weapons. A bad deal is worse than no deal. We need a good deal. And the only good deal that works is a deal like the one that was made with Libya that removed all the infrastructure. I can tell you, now you should applaud that.
What is 2 weeks? Give us, what is the actual date? What is the timeline?
2 weeks or less, and if it's a little more at the time, I say, but, you know, they're losing a lot of people. We have 3,000-4,000 people dying every single week. That's a lot of people to lose. You can imagine parents waving from Ukraine and from Russia, waving to their son as he leaves, and, you know, a week later he's dead on a battlefield, all carved up and chopped up. I've seen it. I see the satellite pictures. They're horrible. They're horrible. I would say it can't get any worse. Body parts laying all over. I don't even like looking at them. Body parts laying all over the fields. What are they doing? It would have never started if I were president.
Is your relationship with President Zelensky better now that things were in the Oval Office?
It was never bad. We had a little dispute because I disagreed with something he said, and the cameras were rolling, and that was okay with me. But we had a dispute. But look, he's in a tough situation. A very tough situation. He's fighting a much bigger force. Much bigger. And that force has not been very distinguished, you know. It's been a lot tougher than they thought, but it helped them when we gave them $350 billion worth of weapons or cash.
Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea, do you think, Mr. President?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Look, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
I was just wondering what Zelensky's thought.
And remember, this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I came in to try and solve a problem. And the problem is so many people are being killed.
Welcome back to the SCIF. It's Monday morning. Thanks for joining us. A lot went on over the weekend. You saw in the cold open there the reason why Trump is reorganizing the State Department, because that woman is classic as to why that needs to be reorganized and rebuilt. And a lot of the people inside need to go. And hopefully will be happening as Secretary Rubio and Trump work on that. We also saw in the cold open that we're headed for a major war. But you know, the reality is we're already in it, and we're going to dig into that. The Yemen campaign has been silent in the press, but it's ongoing, and we're going to bring in an expert on that, friend of the show and actually partner of mine, Brent Beecham, classmate of mine as well, former F-15 pilot and IAF pilot, A4s in Israel. So we're going to get there. We're not going to talk about the reasons of the war. We're going to talk about tactics and what's going on the ground. So we're looking forward to that. Then I got Willie Lora at the bottom of the hour. He's going to talk Mexico, tariffs, fentanyl, all this, and the rest of LATAM. He runs our CDM Espanol. Top of the hour, we're going to have Ira Bishatsky, and we're going to talk about financial markets. A lot going on. The next war is coming in Iran, and the war in Ukraine is ongoing. Trump's trying to end it, but it's not working real well. Today is April 28th. This is the SCIF. I'm your host, L Todd Wood. Here's your mission brief. Power blackout in France, Spain, and Portugal this morning. Is it a cyber attack? That's something that we've been warning about, and we're going to just briefly discuss that before we move on. North Koreans in Russia fighting for Russia. Is that a problem? It depends on which side you're on, I guess. Netanyahu says he'll do it anyway. We're going to talk about that with Brent. The DC Blackhawk crash. Really interesting article out of the New York Times, which essentially validated all of our reporting that we did back in February when it happened, that you need to look at the mental health of this individual, and that's of course not being looked at all anywhere in the press except for us, actually. And then the trade war update ongoing, some developments there. But this is the SCIF. Thanks for joining us. That's your mission brief. We'll be right back after this break, and we're going to talk with Brent Beecham and bring in the rest of the guests. Stand by.
Special report. Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker, stealing all the applicants.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Make sure you join us. Support Alp. Don't buy the woke Zen. alppouch.com/CDM and get a better experience. We've talked about some of the reasons why. It's fresher, it's moister, it has more flavor, it lasts longer. It's not so hard on your gums. And you know what? There's more in the bag. So why not try Alp? Don't use the woke Zen from Philip Morris, which still has DEI all over their website. Also, on the Ukraine, on the cold open, I forgot to mention the new recruitment video from Ukraine targeting 18-year-olds. So they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. This is the public or the real official Ukrainian military. You still have the bounty hunters snatching people off the streets into private military formations. Just really a mess over there. The vampire ball needs to end. The killing field needs to end. I'm going to bring in Brent Beecham, friend of the show now. Sir, how you doing? Good morning, Brent.
doing good morning.
So, Yemen, I mean, we're already in a war, major one. I mean, this is not in the press anywhere. I mean, there's like 800 sorties going on over there. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's intentionally been kept quiet. And I think it's been since mid-March. 800 missions have been conducted against Yemen. Also, unheard in the press has been 20 ballistic missiles that the Houthis have fired against Israel at that same time. In fact, there was 3 just this past week, including one hypersonic missile that was fired at northern Israel, which was for the first time conducted. All of those were shot down. So there's this kind of ongoing thing, but it seems to me that the tactic that we've been using is one, hit the ports to take away their financial capability, and the second is to go after their leadership targets. And whether we're hitting them or not, it's not been again discussed in the press. Of course, yesterday or day before, we hit some target, and there was claims that we killed some African migrants. And again, you see the press; they run straight to that. Al Jazeera, Reuters. We've killed African immigrants, and you're like going
like 68. I read, or supposedly at some collection point.
Yeah, and again, probably 100,000 have died crossing the Red Sea trying to get to Saudi Arabia looking for work, but 68 died in an attack. Trying to pressure the U.S. But the U.S. is obviously we're in a position now we haven't been since the end of the Cold War, which we are in fact the lone superpower. China is incapable of influencing anything really globally, I think, right now.
Yeah, you're right, because of their weak economy and with the trade tariffs, which is quite brilliant. The only thing that worries me is we're expending ordnance at a massive rate, and I just don't think we have the industrial capacity to keep this up. Obviously Trump and DOD are aware of this, and you would think they are rapidly trying to fix that issue, but it's a concern, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, it doesn't help that we sent massive amounts of armaments to Ukraine over the last few years. In fact, the base in Israel, Nevatim, which we built when Israel left the Sinai, that was the forward base for all of our weapons supply for the Middle East. That base was emptied out to supply the Ukraine. So that and I think we probably we're expending a fair amount of our ordnance right now, but again, dumb bombs with kits on them probably are pretty easy to produce.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you brought up Nevatim. I believe you flew out of there, correct?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of reports of a lot of sorties of U.S. air transport cargo planes coming in there, and whether that's with more armaments or missile defense or whatever. Any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, like I said, that's the base that when I was there, it was a training base for fighter lead-in. That's what I was doing there, was kind of the fighter lead-in school. And then in the early 2000s, as the war on terror kind of ramped up, it became the base for supply for Afghanistan and Iraq. In fact, when I was flying for Delta at that time, I was flying with a guy who's a reservist, and he said, "Yeah, I came back from Israel, from the secret base," and I go, "Nevatim," and he looked at me like, like, "How did you know that?" And I go, "Well, I lived there for a little while." It was pretty funny, but that's also where we deployed the THAAD missiles as well, and that's where U.S. Forces from Europe, the Air Forces, whether it's Navy or Air Force or Marines, they deploy there during the winter time when the weather's poor in Europe to do exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And I did in my reserve duty, I did a lot of liaison work there. So it's a fantastic base, but it was built. I mean, it's one of those bases and in the Gulf War, I was in Iran.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
dispersed base, hardened shelters. It was built for is the perfect war base to be in, and great for for transports to come in and out. Very long runways. I mean, you couldn't shut that base down hardly, except with a nuclear weapon, obviously.
Yeah. So my impression is that when we were in the Air Force, the sole job, and that's changed now, hopefully changing back, but the sole job was to kill people and break things, right? I mean, that was the goal, war fighting. Are the gloves off in Yemen? It seems like they might be.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's pulling any punches at this point. I saw some video just a few days ago about the Houthis are still using suicide drones to go after, Navy ships. I saw one where they got really close to taking out a French destroyer. So it's an all out. I mean, it's an all out conflict right now. You're not wrong that it may be something that's not the equivalent of what we saw in, say, World War II with suicide, kamikaze, airplanes flying in. But these drones are dangerous. The Houthis, they may be a ragtag bunch of terrorists, but they got teeth, and they've shot down supposedly a bunch of our MQ-9s, and
Reapers.
yeah, they I saw a rumor something around 20 that they've shot down. So they've got air defenses they've acquired from Iran. We heard and we've reported here that Iran has backed off their resupply of Yemen, of the Houthis. The question is that still the case, and are they still just running on the supply that they had previously?
Yeah. The whole resupply thing is with the straits of the U.S. Navy right now also is a big problem that Trump has to rapidly fix. We'll switch gears to Europe for a minute. I mean, obviously this is reversion to old World War I type tactics. Air superiority seems to have gone by the wayside. And am I wrong on that? I mean, I think that, and this is really a near peer effort fighting our proxy army, which is U.S. mercenaries and everything, run by the U.S. military out of Wiesbaden. So you don't see, and they're trying to get F-16s in there and stuff, and they just maybe don't have the aircraft. But it would be tough to be a fighter guy out there, right, at this point, or an air to ground guy.
So this is kind of the air warfare that we thought we might fight against the Soviets. That air defenses are very dangerous. The S-400s took down an F-16 just a few days ago. In I think it was like April 12th. They lost. That was the second F-16 that they've lost. Fighting in that regime is very tough. If you can't take down the air defenses, you are in deep trouble. So
very similar to Vietnam, actually, because you had heavy air defenses.
Yeah, this is worse because the S-400 is super capable weapon system. The Ukrainians have not been able to take out their air defenses, and their air defenses sit inside of Russia. And obviously, there's been sort of hands off of attacking inside of Russia, and they don't have the same capabilities. They never had the capabilities that we had, or that Israel had. And if you look at what happened in Iran with the attack that the Israelis had, the first thing they did was take out the S-400s that the Iranians had, and then
do you know if they've
free
been
reign.
replaced? I mean, you don't have access to intel anymore, but do you know if they've been replaced or seen any reports of that in Iran that the Soviet or the Russians have maybe resupplied them?
I don't think they've been able to rebuild. And I don't, and if they have, it's a matter. Israel, that's their forte. They did the same thing in the Bekaa Valley. in 1982 against the Syrians, and that was the first thing they did when they went into Iran. They'll do it again. They'll use a combination of drones and airplanes, and they'll take them out. So in any future conflict, that'll if that were to occur, that would be the first thing they did. But the Ukrainians are in deep trouble in terms of their air capability, and the Russians have air. I think they virtually have air supremacy over the Ukraine. It's like you said, it's degraded to World War I. Instead of artillery, it's drones, and instead of howitzers, it's missiles.
Yeah.
And rockets. So it's really
trenches.
And trenches. It's stagnated to the exact same kind of warfare, and it's going nowhere. People are just in the intro, President Trump just saying they're just being cut to pieces on the front. And the difference is in World War I, we didn't see that live. You didn't hear about it until after the war, and you still see the scars in Europe on the ground if you pay attention. And now we're seeing it live. We're seeing it with people's cameras, cell phone cameras.
Well, we're seeing it on Telegram. We're not seeing it anywhere in the press. I don't think I've seen the video of the front on the legacy media.
Yeah. Well, they don't want to.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want you to see it because it's counter to the narrative.
No, it is horrific, and I would encourage people to listen to the interview Tucker Carlson had with the U.S. reporter embedded on the Russian side in Donbass.
Right. That was interesting. That's the first one I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw this morning there was talk of a ceasefire to begin May 8th, I believe. God willing, they can stop this because it's going nowhere. There is no end to this conflict. It will end exactly in the same place it started, in the trenches. Yeah. And they're just going to chew up people by the thousands every day.
Oh, the destruction! I mean, the horror and the pain these people are going through is the families in Ukraine is just off and Russia is off the charts. I mean, there's no reason for this. It's just except if you wanted to have a war and depopulate the country and gain access to resources and the whole thing. So it's pretty horrific.
Yep.
Anything else, Brent, before we let you go?
No, other than I would say it's not about whether Putin's evil or not evil. It is not the point. This war has no, and you and I are old cold warriors, and it's easy to fall into that trap of the Russians are bad and the West is good, and that is not the point of this of trying to end this conflict.
I completely agree. Well said. We'll see you next time, Brent. Thank you for short notice coming on.
Ciao. Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slog, 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 slogging over Africa. Foot, 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 slogging over Africa. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Well, that's Kipling's Boots, Boots, Boots from World War I, just for those who know their history. I want to give a shout out to Nucleo Boost. This is the package. I recently, you probably saw me on here, I was fighting a disease, a cold pretty hard, but I powered through it, and I was able to do that because my body was ready to meet any disease by having at the cellular level all the nutrition I needed into the cell with BioAllo. So go to cdmnutrition.com. Check out the Nucleo. We love it at CDM. We've had a lot of good experiences and a lot of good people coming back saying, wow, this really changed my life, from autoimmune diseases getting better, from all different kind of things. So try it out. Go to the cdmnutrition.com and look for the subscription monthly. It's cheaper. I'm going to bring in Willie Lora now, who runs our CDM Espanol. My friend, how are you? Where in the world is Willie Lora today?
I'm good. How are you? And good morning. I'm in Costa Rica, in San Jose, Costa Rica. I just flew in from Houston a couple of nights ago. How are you?
Oh, well, man. Well, we need to have coffee in Miami again soon. But
yes, we need to. We need to.
Some other beverage. I wanted to get you on because there's a lot going on in LATAM that's not being talked about, my friend. And the big one, I think, even Rubio said this the other day, is the problem in Venezuela with Guyana. Do you know much about that? It's going down.
The thing is, like, after the incursion of some Venezuelan soldiers into Guyana, the tension has risen up a lot. Obviously, it is a national security issue for the U.S. It's trying to maintain peace down in South America. We have some other problems in Colombia. There's news that the president, the former Secretary of State, or the former, from Colombia, that said that the president is actually a drug addict. And, on top of all the things that are going on in Colombia, so they don't want any situation in Guyana and Venezuela. Obviously, everybody knows what the Maduro regime has been doing and what they're up to. They're pushing more socialism and communism in South America. So obviously the U.S. and the State Department, they don't want that to become a problem. So that's what the comments from the Secretary of State. I don't think it will probably go beyond what he went. I think Maduro wants to stay in power, and he knows if he does things like that, like getting troops into another country, that will invite an international force led by the U.S. to try to get him out of power. So he probably doesn't want that attention right now.
So, I think that there's alert, U.S. forces on alert to go into Guyana if that happens. That's what we don't want who knows what the larger agenda is on the globalist side to keep the U.S. involved in different conflicts. This could even be kind of a false flag to get a war going. You never know.
Southcom has, they're on top of that. I believe because of the conversations going on between Russia, the U.S., and Ukraine, Maduro's probably thinking, hey, do I really want to do this and try to get the Russians involved? Because the Russians have been supporting Venezuela. But the Russians, they have a bigger fish to fry. The Russians want to have a good relationship with the U.S. They want to have a good relationship with with President Trump. And the first term, it was shown that they actually had a good relationship. So, and Russia, their economy is not doing great. There's been a lot of people dead from this war. This needs to stop. And I think the president is right about saying, let's stop the killing and let's figure something out. And I think the Russians understand that, and Vladimir Putin knows that it's better to have a good relationship with Trump and stop the conflict and try to negotiate a settlement than actually going after Maduro and supporting Maduro and whatever crazy things he wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of their foreign policy, I think that Putin right now is in a better footing talking to the U.S. and try to end this war than getting into another conflict in South America.
I completely agree. I just think maybe it's some kind of, negotiation pressure point, either by China or it could be Russia or otherwise.
It could be right. Yeah.
Same thing in India. I think that's what's going on. Is China has started that conflict, probably funded the terrorists who killed those guys in order to get a big war going in Southwest Asia, and again pressure the Trump administration. So let's switch to Mexico. A lot of I guess cross signals going on as to what is going on between Mexico and the U.S. The tariff issue, the fentanyl, the cartels, the government, which is completely communist. But what do you think's going on inside of Mexico right now?
The problem with Mexico is actually worse now in terms of how much control the cartels has over the political institutions, the military, the security apparatus. It's infiltrated by the cartels, and we've seen how much terrain they're gained in the past few years, especially in the border side. When the last 4 years they were using the border to traffic for human trafficking, fentanyl, and all that, they were controlling the entire area. It wasn't the Mexican military. And after the past administration said, look, borders will be open. Go to CBP1. We'll let you in. We'll give you a date with the court and say 7 years. So it was like an open season. So my understanding with the numbers was like the cartels made about $3 billion every year. I think it was every year during the past administration just by trafficking people. Actually became a very competitive business. Yeah, that's big money. It became very competitive with the drug trafficking human. Remember that there was about 350,000 kids that actually the Biden administration lost in the U.S. because of the traffic. The traffickers will bring them over to the border, ship them in, and they'll ship it somewhere else in the U.S. So the Biden administration lost track of about 350,000 kids, which is insane. So it's big. It was big money for them, and everything that has to do with trafficking, drugs, fentanyl, and all that, they control all that. And you're seeing the killings with the police and the chapitos and all that, just taking a lot of the headlines because they're controlling a lot of parts of the country. And that's what, like President Bukele says, it's like, I don't understand how a government allows a criminal organization to control part of your country. It's a good question for the president of Mexico. That she wants hugs, but not bullets. That's kind of like what she says she wants. Nobody wants bullets, but you're not going to get any peace with the cartels. They actually after money, and they will kill to get money, and they will do all kinds of things to get money.
So is she just kind of is she working with them? Is she ignoring them? Is she doing both? I mean, she's kind of like continuation of the past president. The same policies, leftist policies, and it's not that she works for them. She doesn't have any other option. Her option will go in a full war against the cartel. She's not going to do that. She knows that the cartels have so many different ways to get back to her. And the family members and members of the cabinet. I don't know if you remember when the attack that happened a few years ago to the head of Mexican security, right in Mexico City by the cartels, and they killed the bodyguards and all that. He survived by a miracle. So they actually send her a message that we can do what we want to do, where we want to do it, and when we want to do it. That's how much power and money they have. So you mentioned Bukele, and I know you have connections there. How did he get so effective? Because he had the same threats. It was a leftist country. There was a communist, revolution there. I mean, how did he get so effective? Is it just personal willpower, or?
One of them is that. But the other issue is like he didn't when he won the election, he did not owe any political favors to any party, even to the U.S. And that's why he has such a bad relationship with President Biden and the Democrats, because they were thinking that, well, we're going to control this guy. We're going to continue to push our agenda. We're going to continue to fund it. And he said, no, I don't owe you any favors. It's like, what I'm going to do is I promised the country that I was going to eradicate the gangs and the cartels. And he turned around and got the military into the things that they needed to do. They went after them and captured the majority of them. And he was criticized because of the way that he did things, but not because of the results. The results are pretty clear. The country, 90 to 92% of the country supports what he's doing, and will continue to support it because so anybody who's gone to El Salvador in the past 10 years, they'll know the difference as to when you used to go there, and I used to go there and go to the hotel, go to work, and back to the hotel. I couldn't go anywhere. A lot of people couldn't go anywhere because it was so difficult to be around when you didn't know when you were going to be kidnapped, and any of these things were happening. Lots of killings. And I don't know if you remember that the week before he was going to enact this new guidance of like the way that he was going to treat the gangs, there was like 68 people killed in one day just to try to pressure him to stop. And he didn't buckle. He was like, no, I'm going forward. And he did it. Then what's going on now is a lot of these countries in Latin America are thinking about applying the same thing. It's like, if you have the military power, you have the might of the state. It's how easy that you're letting gangs and organized crime take over a portion of the country. Yeah. So that's kind of like what he's been saying. He went to DC, and we were there for the CPAC when he said it clearly. It's like it's not coming back. We stopped, and it needs to stop. And I think that's what actually have gained in the position where he is right now, when he's saying, look, I can say to the world that we were the most violent country in the Western Hemisphere in the world, and now we're just one of the safest one in the Western Hemisphere, even compared to the U.S., which is incredible.
Yeah, it is. He's been a shining light for sure. What about? Let's turn to the U.S. now. Actually, can you stay for one more segment? Do you have another?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Ready? Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have a former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm here with Willie Lora, who runs CDM Espanol. Check that out if you're interested in the Spanish press. We're taking back that market. Willie, I just got some news out that the Spanish electricity grid was linked to a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Temperature shifts in Spain caused induced atmospheric vibration and disruptions. I think that's called a cyber attack.
What a nice way to put it. I was reading about it earlier. It's like not only Spain, but a lot of countries in Europe actually went dark. And they say they were going to take a little bit of time to bring it back. But that's that's a really nice way to put it. I was like, wow. Yeah. Europe is facing some cyber attack. That's what I've been hearing and reading this morning. But this is something that in a way was expected. They've been trying for a long time to do this sort of thing, not only in Europe but also the U.S. It's a cyber war that we're facing right now. There's actors that they want to break down countries like Spain, like the U.S. Using new technology. So this is something that we knew was coming. We just don't know how big it's going to be and how else they're going to do it. But we're seeing it, and what's happening this morning in Europe is basically it's basically that. It's just another attack into the infrastructure of another country, and hopefully this is something that the U.S. and Europe can work together. It's one of the things they can work together to prevent, and that will be a good thing. But yeah, this is something that was expected that was going to happen at some point.
So I want to switch to the U.S. The gangs in the deportations in Colorado, there was a big bust overnight.
Yes.
Is Trump being effective right now against this?
Extremely effective. And one thing is, like, even in Latin America, everybody's paying attention to what's going on in the U.S. with the justice system and how the judges are being involved, becoming a full opposition party to the president, minimizing what we know the separation of powers. That some people in Latin America, they can't believe that a district federal judge can actually enact or stop a national policy coming from the executive. Is something that they always said that they've never seen the U.S. and they're watching it. How effective Trump he's been with the deportation issue, very, very effective. And the proof of that is that ABC this morning came out with a poll saying that Trump has the lowest approval rating in 100 years, which everybody knows is a lie. But you need to change the narrative. And that's what the media is invested in, trying to change the narrative. It's like, if he wasn't doing so well, they would not be doing this. And that's something. That's how you can measure how effective it's been. It's like the other news that you're not going to see the headline is like the person who actually allegedly stole the purse of the secretary, DHS secretary, Kristi Noem, was an illegal alien. Yeah. You're not going to see that on the headlines, and that's why the president probably doesn't care. He's like, but we're going to see that at the press briefing. They'll be asked and they'll laugh, because unfortunately the traditional press, has gone way too far in terms of protecting an administration that was the worst administration we had in history, and actually doing the big work for the Democrats as usual with this administration. The difference between this term and the first term is like the media had a little bit of credibility. Now they lost all of it. And this time, in the second term, the president knew exactly what he was going to be facing. And he knew that all the stories, the same thing with stories with Pete Hastings and the whole thing with Signet and blah, blah, blah. Because people were asking me in Latin America, in some circles, like, okay, so the people that actually have the secure line, the communications in the Pentagon, and we're doing all this thing through the security, to secure lines, they actually had an embarrassment in Afghanistan. They got 13 soldiers killed. And on top of that, they actually fired a missile from a drone to an innocent person who was driving, going to work, to justify their failure. Yeah, so I'd rather have somebody that isn't signal and being effective in Yemen against the Houthis than having somebody working with a secure line and actually making a mess of our military. So, and those are the kinds of things you see. Well, when they want to get rid of somebody, they will do those kinds of things. That let's use the media to actually trash somebody. And that's the worst part. And I talked to I just came from Houston. I was talking to some colleagues there, and they were saying, I don't know what's going on. Like, this whole press thing is just ridiculous. I don't know if you saw that the White House correspondent did. It was like, people are freaking out. It's like, well, there's nobody here from the White House. It's a different thing. It's like, well, it used to be porn at the prom for journalists. Like, no journalist will go. Some journalists will go, but it was mostly Hollywood people that would go to those things. I went to those things for 20 years. And I know exactly what it was. I was there when Barack Obama said to President Obama said to President Trump, now, it's like, at least I will be a president, like challenging Trump that he wasn't going to be a president. and he became president twice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Obama, he's irrelevant too. So speaking of irrelevance, your old business, by the way, you run CDM Espanol for CDM. Fantastic website. I mean, the content's really cool, well done, well put together, a lot of good reviews. What's happening to your old, I mean, you built CNN Espanol. What's happening to your old network?
Oh, that is part of his history. Zero credibility. They're close to be shut down. A really small operation. The thing is, like when Jeff Zucker came into CNN, he made sure that his vision was on national news, and especially being the person that the Democratic Party was going to go to. So everything in terms of programming became that. An outfit for the Democratic Party. Same thing happened for CNN Espanol, and most of their affiliates in Latin America dropped their affiliation. They were not interested in partisan politics. They wanted to get the content that CNN used to provide. CNN Espanol, journalistic piece from all these countries around the region. They stopped doing that. They became an outfit just to do political opinion, obviously favorite to one party, and it ends. So right now is relevant. Like nobody watches it, and it's pretty sad because it took us a long time and many years and many efforts and a lot of great people to build it to actually become what it is today.
Well, now you're applying that attention to CNN or CDM Espanol, so we appreciate that.
Yes,
Will.
And what we did when we were in Houston, besides publishing really good articles, we interviewed this attorney, Rick Ramos, who specializes right now in immigration and also personal injury and some different line of work legally in Houston. But we concentrated on that interview to talk about the new immigration policy from the White House and what the Trump administration has been doing, and the impact that this new policies had on the community. And it's a great interview. I'll ask everybody to go and watch it. It's on cdmespanol.com. We published that interview there, and I sent you a copy. I interviewed him also in English for you, so you can publish it on CDM.
Know that we'll get that out.
Yeah, because it is important how he puts it. He's like, look, and he's very clear. The last administration did the worst possible thing to the U.S., opening the borders, like the worst thing that has happened. It's like, and now they're trying to get 20 million people that came in to go in one by one and get a case in court. It'll take 400 to 500 years. Like it's insane. It's
impossible.
What happened? It's like, so it's a good interview. I asked people to go and watch it. It was a pretty good conversation.
What else is going on? Anything else you want to get out to the public, my friend?
But I think the situation in Colombia is going to continue to give headlines. It's a country with a lot of problems now with a president that is being told that he's a drug addict, and that's interesting because Colombia is a big partner for the U.S. and the whole fight against drug trafficking. The other story that we're covering and is that investigation in the Dominican Republic is that discotheque that the roof collapsed and killed 231 people. A few weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, there's baseball players, famous singers, a whole bunch of people die. So the investigation is continuing in a fast pace. So we're going to cover that. So those are the things we're following. And obviously the U.S. continues to be a newsmaker for us in terms of not only immigration policies, but also the economy, jobs, security, education, all those sort of things. So we'll continue to cover that.
Last question, self-deportation. I forgot to bring that up. Do you think that's happening? Do you think
it is? Surprisingly, it is, because the option is like, we'll pick you up and we'll like the raid in Colorado. We'll pick you up and we'll send you out, and you won't be able to come back. But if you leave, if you self-deport, then you have the option to submit another application and try to come in legally. At least you'll have that option. So that's why we're seeing, surprisingly, that a lot of numbers are coming in to deport themselves. Remember that this application CBP1 was used for 4 years to allow people in without any question. It just by saying, I'm a political refugee and that's what I want. And they will let you in, no questions asked. They'll put you on a plane, give you money, cell phone and all that, and send you to another city with a court date 6 to 7 years ahead. So I think it's a great thing, and the president was actually able to turn it around. And hopefully those numbers will increase. But yeah, it's having an impact. It's having an effect.
Willie, thank you very much, my friend. We'll have you back down the road. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Enjoy Costa Rica. Ciao. Bye.
Yes.
CDM Espanol, one of our efforts here at CDM, and we're going to be growing that channel. So please check it out, or tell your Hispanic friends, if your Spanish-speaking friends, if they're looking for a good news source. Willie's the real deal, and we work very close with him. On the blackout in Europe, this is this is more important than people are letting on. I mean, they took down essentially 3 countries, not all of France, but a big part of it. So Portugal, Spain, and parts of France lost all power. So you had cities shut down. You had transportation not working. I mean, think about that. They're going to get it back within 12 hours. In fact, I think France is already back. But this is big deal. Think about New York City or Chicago with no power for a week. That's doable. So you need to be prepared. So we talk about a lot about preparedness here at CDM, whether it's cdmfood.com, the wellness company, just a lot of different ways that we try to get people to be prepared for the future. And this is something you really need to think about, because this is a big deal, and it's bigger than the press is letting on. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to have Ira Brashatsky, and we're going to talk about what's happening in the financial markets. Be right back.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world, because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Brashatsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio, because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF, where we try to give you the intel brief you need to be effective during your entire day, and no more than anyone else at the water cooler at work, around the lunch table, or at the bar, or wherever, or even at home at dinner with the rest of your family. You'll be able to pontificate and know more than anyone else around. So thank you for joining us here on the SCIF. We are live streaming Monday through Friday on the SCIF. We also have weekend shows, which you can check out on CDTV at cdm.press. That's Eastern time, Monday through Friday for the SCIF. And we are on X, we're on Gettr, we're on Rumble. We load the show on YouTube after it's live, because we can't go live, because if somebody says the word vaccine, YouTube might demonetize us and cancel us again, because we were cut off 5 years ago, and we're just now back regrowing that entire channel. So check us out there. We're also on podcast anywhere. any provider pretty much, and you can find us there. So you can check us on the way to work, on the train, in the car, whatever, and get your intel brief. You can double time it on the audio and get it much faster and get through it faster and get the information you need. I'm going to bring on Ira Bashosky right now. He's our resident gold precious metals guy. Ira, thanks for coming on, my friend. I appreciate you today.
Always a pleasure, Todd. I appreciate you every day as well.
So, wow, gold is rocking and rolling, my friend. You called it a while back. So how do you see the markets going right now?
Well, the trends are up. I mean, that's, I'm a technician, so I look at the charts. Everything is in the price. I mean, the fundamentals, it's noise. So like Monday, one day the tariffs are up, next day tariffs are down, next day maybe tariffs. And CDM, you and your Todd and your staff are very good with the noise, analyzing it, getting what people really need to, your subscribers, viewers, the readers, really to cut through everything and to get what really is important for them regarding that part. But, metals are a long-term hold. And I look at the charts and, the 200-day moving average, 50-day moving average are your basic trend indicators. And that's what the hedge funds look at, the mutual funds. And those are all, pointing up. And, as I say in my blogs, nothing goes up in a straight line, nothing goes down in a straight line, but you've got to look at the trends. And, I look back at my blogs from a few months ago and, on January 6th, before the fires out here, the next day, which I still have a little PTSD about that. Seeing the dump trucks and every day, the literally hundreds of dump trucks. So I look back and it said the stock market's in trouble. And literally within 3 to 4 weeks, it hit the Dow hit the top 45,000, started to drift lower, and then with the tariffs thing, it just tanked. My soothsayer, whatever, I just see what's there, and as I said, everything's in the price.
You're a trend guy, right? I mean, you can see the trends.
Yeah, and Josh Hawley again. I was just reading that he put in the Pelosi Act again, which is the so the Congress people don't do the insider trading, and they have to report whatever is 10 days later, a quarter later, whatever it is, but it's already in the price, and then their buddies know what's going on, and you can see, and I saw that in the charts. So are we in a recession? Well, yeah, we've been in one since Biden's era or era. You can use whatever term you want. and I was just reading the other day, credit card defaults are at or near record high, late payments are at or near record high, and people say, well, if the government can do it, I can do it. Well, the government has fiscal and monetary levers. You don't. Maybe you do, right? On the fiscal side, maybe you can have a budget or reduce your spending a bit. Monetary side, maybe you get a raise or a better job, but not as easy as Powell just hitting a button and money comes out.
Yeah, no kidding. So you and I have been screaming well over a year on, you need to protect your portfolio. There's going to be, and what the markets don't like is uncertainty, right? Especially the equity and fixed income markets, and that's what they usually sell off on. There's a ton of uncertainty. I mean, I don't think, short of a major war or oil price, going to 200, I don't see how you can get much more uncertainty than we have now. And gold, precious metals do well in those environments, right? So we could just be at the start of that trend, because we got some pain to go through, in my opinion, to get to healthy economy and business and financial system, 2-3 years down the road.
You're absolutely correct. And with the stock market, it historically, and you and I have been at this over 40 years, it leads the economy by 6 months, 9 months a year. And if it's starting to decline now, we're probably going to have a recession, like one that's a real one that's documented, probably by the end of the year. And then, the economy will start moving up right before the midterms. That's the way I see it. And, I had sometimes, when we're in the shower or we're just thinking, thoughts come into our head. And a thought came into my head that said silver $40. I don't know when, I don't know what, but, you have to go with your instincts, right? You have to go with your gut when it said that. And, my blog post, I think from 2 weeks ago, said that, people were telling me when gold was 2,000, is it too high? Well, no. And I said, once it goes above 2060, which was the all-time high at that point, of 6 months, a year ago, whatever it was. I said, once it goes through there, it's going to keep going, which it did. And then when it hit 2,800, well, is it too high? No. Now it's about 3,300. Is it too high? No. That's the way, just that's what's happening. As you're saying, it's all the uncertainty and things, and the risk on, the risk off, or wax on, wax off. Remember from the movie? So yeah, it's the trend is there. And that's where people make money, in the trends.
Yeah, totally. And so let's say I'm, Joe Bag of Donuts. I worked at Boeing my whole life. I had an IRA, $500,000, or a 401k. I rolled it to my IRA. I just retired, and I don't know what the heck to do. I got all this money. It's my life's work. What do I do? How do I protect it with precious metals?
Absolutely. Hedge with gold. I see it, the stock market a month ago, whatever it was, 6 weeks ago, dropped. The NASDAQ and the Russell both went into bear market territory. And they usually lead the market, the small caps. And the Dow, S&P, I think, got into correction territory, like down 10, 15%. What did gold do? Went down 2.9%. That was it. And then it rebounded to all-time high. And that's what it does. So you can live to fight another day, if you will. It's all diversification. That's what it does.
So if somebody's in that position and they want to talk to you, I mean, they can go to cdmmetals.com. We have that on the screen now, and fill out that form. It's your contact info, and you'll give them a call. But where does it go from there? How do you handle that kind of situation?
Well, there's two ways to purchase physical precious metals. One's what we call the cash buy, which is actually wire in funds. We only accept wired funds for compliance purposes. So you wire in the funds, we do the metals consultation as to what the best metals are for you. It's not about me, it's all about you. And the expression I use is, you're driving the bus, I just put in the gas. Because it really doesn't matter what you buy, as far as it doesn't concern me. I don't do fancy metals with 30, 40% markups. You don't need that. Just need the basic. So we do the consultation, the metals are purchased. I work with a wholesaler, they ship them out, usually within a day or so, sometimes same day. And you get the metals, you get the tracking number, you get an itemized transaction summary, you know exactly what's going on every moment during the process. The other way is, which just you alluded upon, was to roll over all or part of an eligible retirement account, IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, SEP IRA, that sort of thing. So that's where you set up an account with a self-directed IRA custodian. And I work with 2 or 3 of them. They're all very good. So you don't set it up directly with me, you set it up directly with them. The big advantage with that is I don't get your personal information. Social security number, driver's license. So that's another level of protection for you. So you set up the account with them. They do all the heavy lifting to move whatever funds you designate from your current custodian to them. And I said it's self-directed, so you get to choose the investments. And once the funds are there, we do our metals consultation, the metals are purchased. Then by IRS rules, the metals need to be stored at a third-party depository. These custodians work with several that are geographically located throughout the country. They're all insured separately for $1 billion by Lloyd's of London. And you can even go visit your metals as well. If you want to sell the metals, that's something I facilitate with. I don't charge anything for that. So that's a service I provide. You get a shipping label, it goes right to the wholesaler. It's a very, very easy process, because people say, well, how do I sell the metals? That's how you do it, whether it's through the retirement account or whether it's through metals that I ship to your home. And also, I always bring this up, I'm registered with the CFTC. I've had my Series 3 commodities license for over 30 years, which means that everything I tell you has to be factual, fully transparent, and that's another layer of integrity that you get with me that no one else in this industry has.
Yeah, it's actually quite important too. So before I let you go, we've talked before. People may be worried about how do I use this money for barter or whatever, but you've talked about silver rounds, which are very effective to have on hand in case you need to transact in some kind of crisis. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the 1 ounce silver rounds, they're like 3 nines or 4 nines, and people go, "Oh, I'm not getting 1 ounce of silver." No, you are. It's the coin is going to weigh a little bit more than 1 ounce, so you get one troy ounce of silver, and now they're $35 or whatever it is approximately. So someone washes your car, and they say
It was
that's $35.
$25 last time we were talking.
Yeah. See, that's going to be $40 if that thought comes through as well.
Yeah.
So someone washes your car, they go, "All right, Todd, that's $35 washing your car. You know, I have this 1 ounce silver round that's worth $35. We're even. Have a nice day." You know, and in the future, is grocery store going to accept it? I mean, who knows? That's speculation at this point. Some states are accepting U.S. Minted coins like the American Eagle for certain payments, such as property taxes, etc. So that's where it's heading. And metals are as close to cash as you can get in terms of liquidity. It's just phenomenal. It really is. They're great.
Ira, thank you very much, my friend. We will have you back. Always love your expertise, and see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Todd.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe 2 transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
You know, these food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah.
Where you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us. Again, catch us on podcast, catch us live. You can always find us on Rumble, on Gettr, on X as well, and YouTube. We load up the show afterwards because we have to take out all the vaccine references or anything that YouTube doesn't like. But find us everywhere. CDM.press, put us in your daily scan, morning, noon, and night. We are the global wire service. We don't cover everything, but we cover what you need to know. There's a big difference. We don't usually cover the latest, Carolyn Leavitt destroyed another journalist in the White House briefing room. but we do cover, that Netanyahu said he's going to attack Iran no matter what Trump does, essentially. So that is what you need to know. It's not clickbait. Occasionally we'll throw something up there that's kind of funny or interesting, but we have reporters all over the world. CDM is a global wire service. It's the primer for this show is all the information coming from all our networks into this network, and then we try to put it out in a very coherent, easy to understand view for you so that you can be more knowledgeable. We talked about the blackout. The other issue that I wanted to bring up, there's a couple other issues. North Korea. Putin is thanking North Korea for his help in liberating the Kursk region, which is where the Ukrainian troops with Western mercenaries invaded Russia, essentially, and took land. And it was a horrific disaster for the Ukrainians. They lost 69,000 troops. That is the figure I'm hearing. Thousands of military vehicles. And a lot of the Russian civilians were harmed in that area, just like they were in Donbass and Kherson and Donetsk, down toward Mariupol, all the way towards Odessa. So it's a horrific war. It needs to end. But there's a big, pushback in the West that North Koreans were in Kursk fighting with the Russians. I tell people all the time, you don't have to agree with Putin and his invasion. I didn't think he'd do it. I thought I was there in Kiev when it happened. I was in the Hotel Ukraine in Maidan and ended up escaping across the Moldovan border on foot during the invasion. But you have to understand why they're doing it. You have to understand their point of view, because if you don't, you're stupid and you don't understand history. So if this was their country being invaded, and if the U.S. wanted to use Canadians to help defend our border, I don't think U.S. People would be very upset about that. So I don't see how they can. It's kind of hypocritical in my view. Yeah, the North Koreans are a Stalinist state that abused their people, and it's horrific to live there. But the fact that these soldiers were there, I don't see how you can blame Russia for doing that, frankly. Netanyahu and the war. This is another massive, massive story that we want to keep in front of you. And there's a video on this story on cdm.press, came out early this morning, of Netanyahu saying essentially, we're going to destroy Iran's nuclear capability ourselves. And he said, we don't want to wait for some president for a new president in the U.S. Even if there's a deal, we want him destroyed now, or to have a deal that destroys them. So he's essentially throwing the gauntlet up to President Trump. Get what we want, or we're going to do it ourselves. I don't think they have the ability to do it without the United States, to be honest. But it's interesting that this is coming out and Netanyahu's saying that. And we're going to keep on that one, of course. The next story I wanted to just make sure you're aware of is the DC helicopter crash. This is a big one. We were really early on this back when it happened in February. The pilot, a captain, U.S. Army captain, she was flying the aircraft, and we wrote at the time, this could be mental health issues. This could have been intentional. Of course, there was a big cavalcade of voices saying that no, that there's no way that was possible. It was air traffic control error, and the New York Times came out with a story on that exact point. But the New York Times validated what we had to say on the whole story, even though they were trying not to. And listen to this. I mean, first of all, her social media was scrubbed. I mean, she was a gay woman, which, who cares? But she was trying to hide that. She was very involved in the Biden White House and the Biden agenda. And this was right after Trump was inaugurated. You remember all the press and the liberal influencers were saying Trump's going to kill gays, put them in prison. So here she is. But listen to some of this. Not only was the Blackhawk flying too high, but in the final seconds, the pilot failed to heed a directive from her co-pilot, an Army flight instructor, to change course. Curious exchange occurred between the two pilots. The other pilot, who was an instructor pilot, which means a very experienced pilot, he was acting as the co-pilot. She was the pilot in command, which is, I was a helicopter pilot, full transparency. She had command of the aircraft. So he was telling her, you're too high, you're too high, you're too high, multiple times. And then before, I'll just read this. They did several times say that they saw the traffic. And here I quote, he told her he believed that air traffic control wanted them to turn left toward the East River bank. Turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and the flight 5342, which was headed for runway 33 at 300 feet. They were above their max altitude of 200 feet. She did not turn left. So even though she was told to turn, even though they said they saw the traffic, even though the co-pilot was saying, you're too high, she kept going and she hit the aircraft. So combined with the fact that her social media was scrubbed, this all needs to be looked at. I'm not saying that's exactly the case, but I am saying it needs to be investigated, because otherwise it's just simply disingenuous and you're not being honest as to what's going on as far as that crash. So hopefully we'll know more about that over time. But, I'm not holding my breath. Last story before I bring something else to you is the tariff wars. Treasury Secretary Bessent said it's up to China to de-escalate today. That's interesting, because last week he was trying to de-escalate, saying that China, that the U.S. would de-escalate soon, or that there would be de-escalation is what he said. Now he's saying it's up to China. So it looks like the White House has got their narrative together. They're holding firm on the tariffs. Trump did say they're going to be lower than where they are now at 145%. But, he wants China to give something. He wants China to blink. China kind of did blink last week, saying that, we're going to take off tariffs on certain products. But this is where we're going here. China's weak. Their economy is very weak. Trump has all the cards here. And Xi Jinping knows this, and the lies aren't going to work this time. So we will see where this goes. We're going to stay on it. Markets are rallying, if you haven't noticed. Markets are way up off their recent bottom, and Ira Brzezinski was right about that. Stocks recovered, gold recovered. We're heading into the golden age. There's going to be some pain, but see what's going on here is that China is not holding the cards. Trump is. We need to support the president in his actions, and we need to get to that golden age for our grandkids. Speaking of, the future, the past is, Ira was talking about silver at $40. Somebody told him that in the shower. Well, I had some of those moments years ago when people told me about a currency war between the U.S. and China and Russia and Iran, and vaccine bioweapons and communism infiltrating the U.S., etc. There's a wonderful series out I wrote of novels, historical fiction. They're really faction. The first one is Currency, is re-released recently by History of Books. The other several in the series, the Conor Murray series, are coming in short run, I'm told, by the publisher. But if you love historical fiction, if you love understanding what's going on today with a historical relation, if you love that feeling of just not wanting to stop reading and turn the next page at 2 a.m. in bed, that feeling of just not wanting to stop reading, that's what these novels are. I get it all the time. Should have been a movie. I stayed up all night to read it, etc. So check out Currency, ltoddwood.com. I'll give you a signed copy. You can get it there, or at historyofbooks.com, or anywhere books are sold. So thank you for that. I'm going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to have a treat for you, so stay with us. Be right back.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP. Someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical thrower, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20. And we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com. For sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches. The American Lip Pillow on sale now.
Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. David Cross is our resident financial advisor. If you have a death in the family, a sale of a business, a divorce, and you need to know what to do with your finances, and you need somebody you can trust, I guarantee you can trust him. I'll give you my word on that. I've known David for some time. He doesn't mess with his clients. He takes care of them. And I know that he's offered people free services from time to time that I've known that needed help. So he's a good man. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to give you for free, but what I'm telling you, he's a good person. And I know he's not going to rip you off. And he's a patriot, and he's an election integrity advocate in Georgia, one of the biggest ones. And he's vice chairman of the Georgia GOP. So first vice chair. So check him out if you have a situation in your life, you need something. usassetmanagement.com, us-am.com. And just give him a call. Again, we don't have pressure salesmen here. We just like people that can talk to you, give you some advice. So give David a call if you're in that situation. And one of the series we have at armedforces.press, which is our military channel, very popular, by the way. That thing is growing like crazy. We have a lot of pods on there, AFP podcasts, AFP pods. And one of them is called War Stories. And we've been interviewing veterans who have actual war stories to tell. And we're going to play one because we're big on history here. And, we're going to mix the show up from time as we go forward, things that we think are relevant. But right now, we think understanding history and how we got to where we are today is extremely important. We've had General Comer on multiple times with Southwest Asia, Southeast Asia. We've had, Earthquake Titus on, the Korean War, Vietnam War, General Titus, who just recently died. We were lucky to get that interview, one of the great aviators of American Air Force history. And so now you just heard him a little while ago, Brent Beecham, who is an F-15 pilot in the Gulf War, my classmate at the U.S. Air Force Academy. And we're going to play a video that we shot with him of his experiences on the first night of the Gulf War. I think you'll really enjoy this. Is my classmate Brent Beecham, used to be, I guess, Captain Brent Beecham, right? When you left?
Yeah.
So he was an F-15 pilot in the United States Air Force, and then went on to fly for the Israeli Air Force, A-4 attack jets. But he was involved in the first night of the war, in the first Gulf War, and I want to hear his story. So welcome, Brent.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to us how it happened, how you want to lead up to this. I mean, it was shock and awe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really interesting. The commanders in the CENTCOM sent out General Horner to go to all of the squadrons, all the wings that were deployed, and he wanted to assure us that the things that had happened in Vietnam would not happen here. And he wanted us to know what the mission was, what we were, what the goal to achieve was. Talked about centers of gravity, and he said, I can't give you the date and the time, but all you have to do is go look at go talk to the weatherman, and you'll understand when we're going to go. Mm-hmm. So we had a few days warning. It may have been even a week. I don't remember exactly.
So how long were you deployed in country? Were you in Dhahran, or where were you?
Yeah, we went to Dhahran. We were the first combat units to arrive. We deployed on August 7th of 90, and had been flying patrols from the very moment we landed. till the day the war started, and
along the border.
Yeah, we would fly 4 to 8 aircraft every single day up to the border with Kuwait and Iraq, so all along that whole border, to kind of be a tripwire for what was, a potential invasion from Iraq into Saudi Arabia, which was that really was the initial concern. And in fact, when we landed on August the 8th, we had no idea, in fact, one of the first things we talked about was where we're going to redeploy if they do in fact invade and we have to flee south, what's the next stop? So, I mean, there was a lot of concerns about that, but we spent a few months familiarizing ourselves. And it got to the point, I think, where we weren't even sure that it was actually going to happen. They gave us no timelines. And there was lots of negotiations and whatnot. So it was a little bit of uncertainty. Went from very gung ho, ready to go to war, get there, prepare, and then now we're on hold for this long period of time.
Hurry up and hurry.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all thinking maybe it's time to go back. Maybe it's time to go back home if we're not going to go to war. We had not really packed for a 1-year deployment or something. It was an indeterminate amount of time. So, once we got that visit from General Horner, we knew it was going to happen. And I'll tell you, there was a little bit of a pit in the stomach of anybody who will, admit it. But
of course,
it was, it's one thing to deploy and arrive and go straight to combat because something had happened. It was another to sit there for a long period of time, kind of get a little bit complacent about whether or not there actually would be conflict.
And were you getting lit up when you were on controls? Sorry, we got some feedback. I mean, was there a threat level that you could see?
They occasionally would run MiG-25s at the border to threaten AWACS or the tankers. So that was our primary mission, was to defend, high value assets. So we saw them run against us a few times. You could see SAM sites across the border just, looking at us, but it wasn't any palpable threat. I did fall asleep one night. Almost started. Maybe I could have started the war a little early. I fell asleep. We're so tired. We flew so many missions, and we were in a counter-rotating cap at night. So we had this air-to-air attack in between us. We knew how the distance, so we would hit 20 miles and then turn back, and it's 20, 21, 22. And the guy I was flying with goes, "Hey, where you at? Where you going?" And I was like, "Oh crap!" I woke up and I was just a few miles from the border. That was all interesting stuff. But like you say, you just get into this routine, and then all of a sudden it's real. And to the point, the first night I was actually on duty to help get everyone out off the ground, and so I was running around between different revetments. And we went out, and I said, "Okay, guys," we talked to the crew chiefs. "Hey, we're going to war." And they looked at me like, "What?" They were, completely caught by surprise. I said, "This is the flight lead of the first airplane that's launching from Dhahran, and I need that airplane to be right." And they, all of a sudden you could see this sense of purpose. Of course, and this was guy Steve Tate, who at the beginning they said it was the first kill. There were some timing issues about that, but he got a kill the first night. He jumps in his first airplane, it breaks. I run to the second airplane, get it ready. He tries to crank it, it breaks. I run to the third airplane and set it all up. He jumps in, he taxis out into the runway. There's a fuel leak on one of the tanks, and now they're like 25 minutes late for this, for their tanker. And this master chief looks at me, has gum in his mouth, and he goes, sticks it on the leak. He said, that'll hold until it gets pressurized. And I was like, that would never happen in peacetime. So it was really, so he goes up and he gets his first kill, comes back, and, that was the first sense that, things were happening. The interesting thing was I was in a four-ship with the guy who was our weapons officer, and he was one of the guys that was doing all the planning. And he said, let's don't do nighttime. Let's get a day mission so we can do some dogfighting. So we kind of picked the mission we were going to go on, which was the next afternoon. And, we went up. There was 8 of us from Langley. I think there was 48 F-16s. There was a couple of EF-111s that were jamming, and I think a 4-ship of F-4Gs that were doing Wild Weasel stuff. And so we flew up north to the tankers. There was tanker tracks up there that we were going to refuel. This was an attack on a base just outside of Baghdad. And, our mission was to go up and clear the skies on the way in, pick up anybody that would launch to attack, that would come after the F-16s, and then cover the egress out. And so the entire time we're sitting on the tanker track, it takes a long time to get everybody refueled, get everybody tanked back on for this mission. And Baghdad's a pretty good distance up north, and we're a little bit kind of to the west, so we're not anywhere where all the big, really dense threats were around Kuwait. But as we're sitting in the tanker track, the AWACS, and it was this it was a female controller, and she was unbelievably talented person and was very calming. And it was really interesting how just her voice, calling out the threats was, very clear, and everybody understood what the picture was. And interesting, there were MiG-29s that were up over the base that we were going to attack. We knew there were MiG-29s to the west of that at a base. That was a big threat to us. And so we're planning, there's 8 of us, and we're all planning how we're going to shoot down these 2 MiG-29s. And interestingly enough, there was the guys from Eglin were out west, and for whatever reason, they come sweeping across the entire formation of 60-odd airplanes and shoot down these 2 MiG-29s like visual distance, and then come flying right back through these F-16s who are all trigger happy, waiting, for MiG-29s that they've been talking about for the last, hour. And I'm surprised they didn't shoot them. And then, sure enough, we get into the cap. There's surface air missiles locking onto us. There's these MiG-29s that we're, what happened to them? Who's launching from these other bases? So all of a sudden, it got very chaotic. I had radar warning for SA-2 and 2 SA-8s, and the SA-8s went straight to SA-8 launch. So they were visual launches. We were, because of the weather, we got pushed lower, and then we highlighted ourselves below the clouds. We had to get down below them, but they were able to launch at us visually. And I remember, they talk about time compression, and I remember having a conversation with myself. It was, if I turn left towards the formation, I'll stay with everybody. If I turn right, and there was a defensive maneuver. If I turn to the right 90 degrees, I'm going to be I'll move away from everybody, and then I'm not sure if I can get back. I'm sure that happened in a split second, and I decided I was going to turn left. And the F-4Gs were launching HARM missiles at them. I believe they probably broke lock because I didn't see the launch because it was a visual launch, and we didn't get warnings until, it's probably 30 seconds time of flight before they're going to hit you.
Yeah.
So I think, the F-4s probably either caused them to break lock, or the maneuvers and chaff that we put out were able to defeat them. But I never did pick it up visually, but it was a pretty chaotic, period of time. F-16s went in, dropped their bombs, came popping back out. Wearing our cap. They go out, and we follow them back out again, and go back and refuel back across the border. So it was, probably that was maybe an hour and a half north of the border our first day, and it's really, I look back on it and I can remember good portions of what happened pretty vividly, and it was an exciting day.
Well, a telephone pole coming at you will sharpen your senses.
Yeah.
Those SA-8s and 6s and 2s are pretty big missiles.
Well, SA-8's a little bit smaller, and really, if you don't see it launch, you're not going to pick it up. I saw later in the war at night, I saw SA-2s, and those really were telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
They were huge, and man, I thought about back in the guys in Vietnam era, seeing these things come up out of Hanoi or something, and
Sure.
I was able to kind of flash back to that kind of period. But
So were you running missions for some time after that?
Yeah, so we flew every single day, and then so you would fly. You had an 8-hour flying block for a pre-planned mission, an 8-hour block of alert, an 8-hour block of sleep. And so most of the days we did mostly day missions. We swapped to nights, 3 or 4 nights into the war. I think it was the 3rd night of the war, we flew a night mission. There was 4 of us. One guy had a malfunction. He had to go back to base, and the 3 of us got pushed out to go intercept some high value transport that was being escorted by 8 MiG-29s. And we didn't have enough fuel to go catch them. They were heading towards Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And so AWACS directs this KC-10 to fly north. And again, up in this point, all the tanker tracks are south of the border. Most fighter tracks are south of the border. You just went across the fence for specific missions. This KC-10, they said, you need to take off north and meet these 3 F-15s and refuel them. And so we ended up refueling. We came up on this KC-10. He didn't have a single light on him. I didn't see him until he was less than a quarter mile out, maybe less. Yeah, I could see him.
I remember it as well.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Exactly. And look down, and there's literally, we're between these 2 big fighter bases in southern Iraq, and there's an attack going on, and you see AAA coming up off these 2 bases, and we're like right between them with this KC-10, and so we refuel really quickly, and we take off north heading for these guys. And I remember the KC-10 guy calls back to AWACS. He's like, they refueled. What do you want us to do? We got no protection up here. And they're like going, turn south and go fast, So it was a pretty good distance to take that kind of risk. I don't know what the asset was that they thought we were going after, but they had 8 MiG-29s, and there were 3 of us. And we got close enough to see them on radar, but we never could catch up with them enough. And I think they crossed into Iran. It could have been somebody, Bath Party or somebody that was being escorted. But you don't put 8 MiG-29s on an airplane if there's not somebody on it that's important.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how did it end for you?
How did what?
How did it end for you?
Yeah, so the last 2 nights of the war, before the ceasefire, I was on alert, and we got really comfortable with alert. Like when you're practicing in peacetime, 5 minutes seemed like a like that's not enough time to get off the ground and, and fly. By that time we were, sleeping in your underwear basically, and able to get off the ground pretty quickly. And so we got scrambled 2 nights in a row. And best of my knowledge, it was Saddam was planning to flee, and we were scrambled to go shoot him down. And they gave us this code word that said, this is an all cost. Chase him however far you have to, and if you run out of fuel, so be it. We'll come get you. And that was they gave us this code word for that, and so we knew it was pretty serious. And so we scrambled 2 nights in a row for that. And I remember taking off, like looking down, okay, my boots aren't tied. Oh yeah, I gotta get the ejection seat, armed up. Oh, I forgot to, put on one of my harnesses. I mean, you just got off the ground as fast as you could. It was really interesting. And then so once the ceasefire happened, we continued to patrol, and we did that. And of course, they lit the oil fields on fire. So we were, flying up through, it was just smoke and fire everywhere. It was really surreal. And after a week or so of that, they decided to rotate us home since we were the first guys. So we came back almost 7 months to the day, came back to Langley, had to stop over in Spain on the way back, and then, finally back home. And it was definitely a big welcome from the base. Back in the day, people today forget there was no internet, there was no cell phone, there was no video, there was no email. It was, occasional phone call and a bunch of handwritten letters. So to reconnect with your family for 7 months was a big thing for us.
I forgot, I hadn't thought of that we didn't have all that back then. Yeah. Sure. Well, interesting, Brent. Anything else you want people to know?
No, just I think a lot of people today, there's a disconnect between American people and the military, and I think that the professional force has made it such that people don't really have any connection with anybody they know. It's not like the draft days when you knew somebody from your high school or your neighborhood got drafted. Remember that there are people out there every day that are defending our country, and we really need to make sure we support them, and not just in a kind of casual way. We support our troops. So it's important work they do, and we appreciate it.
Brent, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Sorry about the
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, you use Alp? Yeah, I do, says my friend. So do I, says the cop. We all do. He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, drive safely, sir, and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. We got a big show tomorrow. 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. Wednesday night, we'll have the Georgia show, and then again Sunday at 2 p.m. So Wednesday at 7 Eastern, 2 p.m. on Sunday. Colorado show at 4, and we've got a Eurobytes we'll release here very shortly on Rumble, X, and Gettr, and YouTube. And this show will be on YouTube also. We're really trying to grow the YouTube channel. We have to load it up afterwards so we don't get any strikes against us. But we got kicked off YouTube. We're trying to grow that again. So some people just won't go on Rumble, and we need to get the message out there on the show to people who are, normies. So again, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the SCIF. Please tell your friends. Take care.